Hello everybody, it's James, and on behalf of Neptic Fathers, I'm going to be bringing you all another book review. Today I'm going to be talking about The Mountain of Silence. This is a book that I read a long time ago when I was first interested in Orthodoxy, and then I've actually reread it about maybe a year ago, and I made a study guide to have a book study with my parish. And so I'm going to be providing the download links for that in the description. So if you all are interested in the study guide that I made, that'll be provided for you all. So it's been forever since I've done a video. I know you guys probably thought that I died of old age, but I just recently moved. So this is why I'm in this new studio here. So for a while I was working a ton of hours because I had two mortgages at the same time because I don't want to have to try to buy a house with the restrictions that I had to sell my other house. So I just bought two at the same time and paid two mortgages. So I was working 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks. So I was kind of burning my candle at both ends. So also not only that, but in addition, I've been kind of distracted by all these other stuff I've been reading. So like, for example, this book here, The Writings of the Philokalia on the Prayer of the Heart, fantastic. This is probably now tied for my favorite book. So outside of the Triads, The Writings from the Philokalia, this is by Faber and Faber. Fantastic book. So not only did I get a paperback, which I carry with me pretty much everywhere, I also have this hard copy, so you can get it in hard copy used. And then if you even want to, I found this bootleg Indian leather edition. So I liked it that much. So in addition to that, I've also been reading books like The Medieval Manichae, and that's by Stephen Runciman, who is a Byzantine scholar. And I've been also reading Heresy and the English Reformation, and Georgy Vasilev, I guess is how you say his name. But anyway, I read the Medieval Manichae, and I've taken notes on that, and I'll probably do a video on that book. And then this one I'm reading through right now, it's got a ton of great information. So while reading up on like St. Gregory Palamas, the Hesychast controversy, St. Gregory's life, he encounters people who are called Bogomils. It's like the Bogomils are a Neo-gnostic group that are around Byzantium during the time of St. Gregory and before that even. And so we're talking like the 1340s all the way back to, I think they start appearing around 900 AD, if I'm not mistaken. So you get a bunch of different groups that are Neo-gnostic. And I think scholars kind of think that they probably came from the Manichaeans. And so you had the Manichaeans, and then that turns into the Paulicians, and then the Paulicians turning into Bogomils, and the Bogomils turn into the Cathars, and the Cathars were in the West. And then the Cathars basically spread their doctrine to the proto-Protestants. And so the proto-Protestants take a lot of their doctrine, a lot of the implications of Gnosticism, but they drop the weird Luciferian elements of the Neo-Gnostics. So a lot of Neo-Gnostics believe that Satan is the creator of the world and that the physical world is bad. And the proto-Protestants dropped that, but kept a lot of their anti-clericalism and a lot of things like the rejection of the sacraments. So when I was looking into Orthodoxy, I'm like, man, a lot of these Protestant doctrines that I've believed in really kind of remind me of the things that I read about when I read about Gnosticism. And so I kind of ended up finding a link here in history from one group to the next group to the next group as they kind of eventually just make their way across the basically Europe, well, from the, I guess, Middle East into Europe, or even from Persia, I guess Persia into what is now like modern day Turkey and the eastern part of Europe, and then from there into the West. And then then that takes you up to the time period of like the Crusades, because they actually did the Albigensian Crusade. And the Albigensians were another group that are similar to the Cathars, and they kind of go under different names. But the Heresy and the English Reformation book, right now I'm reading a section of it where it kind of talks about how these groups, that I've just mentioned, are very similar to the Lollards, and it's talking about the different doctrines that they all have in common. and it compared and contrasted in columns and everything, and it's really good. The book, The Mountain of Silence, is the first in the series, with the second one being Gifts of the Desert. And I probably like this maybe like 75% or 50% as much as The Mountain of Silence. This goes over more terms. If I'm remembering correctly, I read it like 10 years ago, so it's been a little bit. But so if you're like a real big bookworm, I'd recommend this one. But like I said, it's only about as 50% is good, 75% is good. And this one, The Inner River, is... it has a few stories in it that I like, but I like it the least out of the set. The second and the third book, the author puts more and more of his own comments in, so it kind of gets more opinionated as opposed to just like, here's kind of like the Orthodox spiritual tradition, here's like monastic wisdom and stuff like that. He puts more and more of his comments in there. So, but if you're coming from a Christian tradition, it should be pretty easy to figure out what's coming from like Father Maximus and the Orthodox tradition versus his own personal opinions. So in the workbook, I have two different editions. LibreOffice, the LibreOffice file will make it really easy to do a little workbook like this. And so you can save paper and just staple it in the middle. And then obviously you can just do like full-size papers, which makes the typing a lot bigger. And so like the two different versions that I've made, and will include, some of them I have sections in the study guide that allow for like conversations and stuff. So like if you're in a group, I've put blanks in there so you can write down stuff that you might want to talk about with your friends. So the key terms that I include in here, a lot of them are being defined from the Philokalia, and in the back of all 4 volumes. And then the 5th volume, I think it comes out June or July. It comes out sometimes this summer, and you can actually pre-order it right now on Amazon, which I'm really excited about. And that's the 5th volume's technically been out for a while, but the actual Faber and Faber 5th volume is coming out here shortly. And so the glossary in the back of this is fantastic. So like the glossary by itself is almost worth the price of all these books. But you can also find this online, and in the book, I think I include the hyperlink to the glossary on the website. So in addition to using the Philokalia, I'll also use the Vines. You can get these all over the place. So these are like super cheap because there's a bajillion of these copies, and you can normally find them in like the Bible section or the Christian sections of used bookstores. And it should be, I don't know, like maybe $10 a copy for these kind of things. And also, if you like the Strong's Concordances, a lot of times they're combined together. And if you don't even want to use a book, eSword has a great built-in, I think it's built-in Vines, but it comes in a desktop version and an app version, and it's got great Bible translations. Like you can get Greek, you can get where it'll link to different words, so you can actually look and see what the word is just by putting your mouse cursor over the word. And it includes some great dictionaries, and it also includes lexicons. So it makes it really easy to study the original languages. They have the Byzantine text. They got the Greek Old Testament, so they have the Septuagint. So it really makes it easy to do word studies with the Septuagint. And that's going to be beneficial for a lot of people who are interested in the Greek because of the Orthodox tradition using the Greek Old Testament. So The Mountain of Silence is a great introduction to Orthodox spirituality, and it's affordable. So that's another reason why I highly recommend it. It's easy to find. You can get it used. A lot of times you can get the used copies under $10. And in the book, it brings up a lot of key terms that are actually used in the Bible. So I tried to find like the best verses that I thought would represent the usage of the word, of how it's being used in the book. And so I included those in the study guide, and I also included the definitions. I also have documented the sources, but I didn't use a standardized format. I just kind of copied and pasted most of the stuff in there. But you should be able to use the documentation in order to find what you need. And I cover the main topics of the book in the study guide. So it's kind of like I go from kind of like a page by page, hitting the main topics. So just kind of like what I do when I take my notes when I'm reading the book, I included that. And the smaller version is 28 pages, and the longer one for like the group study is 33 pages long. The author is Kyriakos Markides, and he was raised Orthodox but became agnostic when studying sociology. This worldview eventually led to nihilism, which then gave way to him practicing the New Age and different meditation techniques. His progression from the Christian faith to atheism to the New Age and like various forms of spirituality is actually very familiar in the West. And so I think that's another reason why the book is so good, is because so many people will be able to relate to what he went through. In the book, there's a character, Father Maximos, and Father Maximos is actually a pseudonym for Metropolitan Athanasios, and he's a current hierarch in Crete. So in addition to covering the differences between Western spirituality and especially Protestantism, Catholicism, but it also does kind of delve into how because Kyriakos, his own experiences in the New Age, kind of how that differs from Orthodoxy. Also includes how to pray and kind of methods for getting over distracting thoughts like daydreaming. So just to give you an idea of what's in the book, here's a quote. In addition to being the indispensable physical organ that keeps the body alive, Father Maximus claimed, the heart is also the center of our psychonetic powers, the center of our beingness, of our personhood. It is therefore through the heart that God reveals himself to humanity. This is what the holy elders have taught throughout the ages, that God speaks to human beings only through the heart, the optical organ through which one can experience the vision of God. Therefore, those who yearn to see God cannot possibly do so through other means, such as reading Plato and Aristotle or by doing science. Great as their philosophy might be, it is not the way to God. It is only the cleanness and purity of the heart that can lead to the contemplation and vision of God. This is the meaning, Father Maximus argued, of Christ's beatitude. Blessed are the pure at heart, for they shall see God. That's a quote from pages 43 to 44. So the book also covers illnesses of the heart, ignorance, forgetfulness, hardness of heart, contamination, and imprudence. And some of the key terms that I include in the study guide that the book brings up are Metanoia, Nous, Askesis, Logismos, Plani, or that's delusion, or maybe some of you have heard it as prelest. And also the book covers Theosis, Catharsis, Contemplation, Discrimination, or commonly referred to as discernment, Dispassion, and even more. But those are the main ones that I think are the most important that the book covers. So here's another quote that I thought was pretty good. Logismoi are much more intense than simple thoughts. They penetrate into the very depths of a human being. They have enormous power. Let us say, Father Maximus went on to clarify, that a simple thought is a weak logismos. We need to realize, however, that certain thoughts, or logismoi, once inside a human being, can undermine every trace of a spiritual life in its very foundation. People who live in the world don't know about the nature and power of logismoi. That is, they don't have the experience of that reality. But as they proceed on their spiritual struggle, particularly through systematic prayer, then they're able to understand the true meaning and power of this reality. That is page 118. The book also covers 5 stages when tempted by the logismoi. And so the stages are assault, interaction, consent, captivity, and then the last stage is passion or obsession. And that's when the logismoi becomes kind of like an addiction. So here's another quote kind of relating to the illnesses of the heart that I thought was pretty pertinent. The most basic illness that the holy elders talk about is ignorance. In their language, however, ignorance does not mean lack of the right kind of information or the right kind of intellectual knowledge. What they really mean is the heart's ignorance of God, and this lack of direct experience of God renders human beings incapable of knowing what it means to live apart from God. And that's a quote from page 53. Here's another quote. After ignorance is a primary illness of the heart, Father Maximus went on, there is the related illness of forgetfulness. The heart does not remember God. It forgot how to be in a prayerful state. It's page 55. And another quote. In order for the prayer to reach the deepest recesses of the soul, it requires constant and persistent spiritual struggle. Once that is achieved, the person becomes enlightened and endowed with wisdom. At that stage, a different instrument of understanding beyond logic and the rational mind gets activated. In fact, it guides logic as it is superior to it. So those are just a few examples of the quotes and what you would expect to find in the book. So I recommend getting that. It's a great introduction. So like in all the books that I'll probably end up talking on the prayer life, it's like one of the first ones that I recommend reading, because like once you get that, you get the key terms, and it makes it a lot easier to read a lot of other Orthodox books and stuff, because you'll already kind of have a good foundation. So I hope you all get the book, that you like it, that you use the study guide, and I hopefully will start coming out with some more videos here in the future. But until next time, this is James signing out.